Okay, hey everybody, welcome to Simon on the Sofa. Today I'm on a little chair, but as I always say, if you've been following my conversations, then I try to hunt down sofas wherever I can, and the majority of the time I'm on a sofa. And today, you could say a bit of a spontaneous call, but a really lovely, mysterious call for me as well, because I'm about to speak to a man that I've never spoken to before, and that does happen sometimes, but rarely. We've had a little interaction on email, and I don't know much about this wonderful being, but I do have a sense that just from the article I read of what he shared is what attracted me to him. On my exploration of when I was reading about the ego for a book that I'm putting together. And Rj Spina, hey Rj.
Hi Simon.
Hey, thank you for joining me today on the sofa.
My pleasure.
And yeah, great, yeah, lovely. And so my partner said to me earlier, she goes, "You do Simon on the Sofa today?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Who with?" And I said, "Well, I don't know actually. I goes, I don't know. I've never seen him. I don't know what he looks like. And but I'm going to have a lovely conversation. I read a beautiful article from him, so I'm sure we're going to have fun."
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's best not to know too much.
I agree. And often, you know, what's happened to me in the past, RJ, is that sometimes I have a conversation with somebody, and it's why I said to you that it'd be great just to dive in, is I have a conversation with somebody, maybe previously, and certain things get shared. And afterwards, I say, wow, I wish we just recorded that conversation and everything would be great. So I'm really happy just to show up today and be with you and share a lovely conversation. And for everybody, if this is the first Simon on the Sofa that you've come across, I always like to say that, you know, there's over 100 conversations now. And transparent communication is really what I term as the communication of love. It's the communication of truth, and it's a language. It's a new language that not a lot of people are familiar with. That term transparency has become a little bit of a buzzword, especially in the business world and the marketing world. It's like, if we're declaring ourselves, if we're being transparent, then people can trust us. And what I'm looking at is really what I call transparent communication is this language of love. I've often used the term in my workshops and events as the language of love, because when we can truly speak from our place of truth, then that's a self-loving act. And in that process, we love ourselves. We can also embody our ability to communicate our truth. So when we truly come to ourselves, respect ourselves, and come from that place, we start to be able to move away from the lies that we've either upheld unconsciously, subconsciously, obliviously, and then we can start to just show up and explore consciousness, explore life. And that's really what these conversations are. They're an inquiry. They're an opportunity to meet other like-minded, magical reflections of life, and then dive in together and see what comes. So they're never really planned. They're just me showing up as RJ is today. So with that in mind, I know RJ is totally open to that concept, and he's watched a few Simon on the Sofas. And I'd just love to say, RJ, that one of the things I loved on your website is just this, you know, you're on this constant inquiry into consciousness, and that you're spreading awareness whilst exploring awareness. Maybe, I don't want to put words into your mouth, and in that cultivating joy. And I really love that. So maybe we kick off from there and then see where we go. How does that feel? Do you want to just talk to whatever's coming up for you in this moment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think maybe I'd like to start with how this journey for me really got kicked off.
Beautiful.
I would say in my early 20s, which was now 20 years ago, in my early 20s, I was having issues with my parents, with both my mother and my father. And the issue, Simon, it was interesting in that I was getting feelings and thoughts regarding both of them that didn't seem to coincide or jive with the relationship that I have with them. So in other words, I was feeling things and thinking things as I'm interacting with them that didn't seem to fit in terms of the nature of the relationship that I had with my parents.
Right.
And I couldn't understand where these thoughts and feelings were coming from, because they didn't seem to come from the interaction that I typically have with them. So a friend of mine had said, you know, have you ever meditated before? I said, no, I've never meditated. I've always been interested, but I've never done it. And he suggested, you know, why don't you try? Why don't you try meditating? And the very first time I meditated, Simon, I did a practice called Zazen, which is a Zen Buddhist practice, which is where you sit on the floor, eyes open, and you kind of gaze straight ahead about 5 feet in front of you. And the very first time that I did that, all of a sudden, things started to happen for me. And the first thing that happened about 2 minutes into it was that a screen literally dropped down right in front of me. Picture like a movie screen, we're at the movies, and the curtains are closed, and the curtain opens. It was the same thing, except it just dropped down. I could still see my general reality on the sides, but that curtain dropped down, and all of a sudden, I was somewhere else, watching something that I knew I was a part of. There was this slight distance. It's like watching a movie, but knowing you're the star of the movie. And I could see a whole nother scenario, a whole nother situation, and I could see myself as a different incarnation, and I could see the soul that is my father, and I could see what was happening and as to why I had the issues that I had with my dad. And that was the first time I meditated, and it was absolutely life-altering, completely life-altering. And after coming to grips with what happened, doing that the first time I ever meditated, I decided this was something that I needed to do and devote myself to it, because it gave me a greater understanding of me and what was going on. And I did the very same thing a few days later, focusing on the energy and the intent on my mother, and the same thing happened. Screen drops down. And what I saw this time is what you and I would call a future life. And I saw the interaction between the soul of my mom and me. And ever since then, Simon, without going on and on about those experiences, ever since then I've meditated. I've taken it more and more seriously. I have a real practice where it's at least an hour a day. And now I teach it, and the places that I've been able to go and the information that I've been able to get has completely changed my sense of self, and therefore completely changed my sense or perception of reality.
Lovely. And how you said that was 20 years ago that first experience happened?
Yeah, I was 23 or 24 years old. Yeah. And I was feeling very stressed out. I was having issues at home with my parents. I was having other issues. I had a relative that just died. My best friend at the time was my dog. I had to just put him to sleep. So there was so much pain and suffering going on, and a lack of understanding as to how to reconcile what was happening. And thank goodness my friends were meditating, and my whole world has completely changed since that day.
And so, you know, this idea of the drop down, because, you know, as you know, many people meditate now, and there's many different forms of meditation. And so often people get into meditation. I'm sure you're aware of this, being now that you're sharing it and teaching it yourself, is that, you know, with this, again, this seeking and this expectation that meditation might resolve something. And obviously, you know, you could say the sort of general consensus is that, okay, I meditate too, so I totally agree with that meditation. In my experience, whatever form of meditation doesn't helps, but depending on how much you're going to commit to it or dedicate the time to it, then often I've come across people on this path myself where I sometimes have a lot of expectation around meditation, and then when you really look at maybe deeper into their practice, you know, that we're still at many different layers of where you can go. So you've been meditating for some time, so I'm curious as to, you know, you described this drop down of the screen and you sort of saw into your father and mother's experience. I'd love to hear from you, sort of, as you've deepened your practice, maybe some of the experiences or some of the things that you've seen or how you've interacted with life have opened for you. And I know it's a very unique experience for everybody, but you know, I'd like you to speak to that a little bit. That would be lovely.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned about expectations. Just before I go into more stuff that I've experienced, that's really important, because expectations actually are the route to all suffering. So
Right.
if we don't have expectations, then we can just experience something for what it is, and that's really important. And just because early on I had these kind of experiences doesn't necessarily mean I have more skill at it or anything like that. I mean, anyone can meditate, and if it gives you peace of mind, then it's well worth it. If you happen to get visuals, or you get information, or clairsentience, clairaudio, or none of that, just a real peace, then it's so worth it. So I'm just glad that you said about expectations. So
Wonderful.
now to go to your question, Simon. I've written 1 or 2 articles about some of these specific instances. One of the articles is entitled "The Cosmic Experience Through Meditation." And what I've found is that there are many different realities, and there are many different dimensions. And within each dimension, there are many different frequencies. And within each frequency is a different reality. One of the experiences that I've had is, and I wrote about this, I was able to go to a reality, it's a higher frequency, a higher state of consciousness, and my entire reality reacted to every thought, feeling, or perception that I had in regards to my reality. Meaning, like, the entire reality was reacting to me, as if the reality was totally interactive. And by the way, our reality works the same way. This was just more direct. Everything was made of light, and it was moving and undulating. And as I had thoughts about looking at things, the lights would move in accordance with my thought. If I felt something, if I felt a sense of awe, it flashed. And it was responding to me, literally responding to me. And it was almost as if I was creating this world by moving these lights around through my thoughts and feelings. But maybe even more interesting than that, Simon, when I had done this for a couple of minutes, I got the sense that these lights had sentience, and they actually were telling me, we appreciate interacting with you, but now we have work to do. And so I left that. I was like, okay, and I left that reality. That's one experience. I'll tell you another. There's literally been, I don't know, thousands, and I'm writing a book as well. Some of them are going to be included in there.
Nice.
But there was one where I went to. It appeared to be like a space station, and as I'm approaching it, by the way, when you explore your consciousness, when you're a consciousness explorer, and I've heard other people say this, as you're moving towards another reality, you don't move fluidly. Like a movie is 24 frames per second, but because it's played at a certain speed, it seems fluid. When you're doing conscious exploration or consciousness exploration, I came upon this area and I was moving like this, then this, then this. It wasn't fluid. It was like jumps. And I think really what they were, Simon, they were now, and then I was here, now, and then I was here, now. And it wasn't fluid at all. So that often happens to me as I'm projecting my consciousness to different areas. But it appeared to me to be a military installation. And when I got there, I was like, this is the last thing that I want to experience, is some, possible extraterrestrial military installation. But as I got there, and this being, very tall, all white, with a black sort of cape, very skinny, all white, no real features in terms of its face, and all communication was telepathy. And he approached me as my consciousness sort of arrived there. And the first thing this entity said was, calm down, because I was excited that I had gotten to this place. And he or it was telling me, calm down. And I said, okay. And I said, can you tell me what this is? And the being's like, well, what do you think? I said, it looks like a military installation. I really don't want to see any of this. He said, it's nothing like that. It's disguised. It's actually, any being can come here and realign itself and realign its DNA and heal itself. We disguise ourselves as a military installation so we never get attacked or blown up. But any being from anywhere can come here and get themselves completely healthy. and I could see the machine, and beings were coming by and lying down almost like an MRI tube, and they would get in it, and lights would go off. It was very quickly, lights would go off, and they'd get out, and they would shake everyone's hands and bow and leave, and then another being would come in, all different shapes and sizes of beings. So that was another experience, one that I remember vividly, because I was so fearful when I first got there, because I really thought it was a military installation, and it really turns out that it was actually the polar opposite. It was to heal. So I thought that was interesting. So that's
Thank you. Yeah, so these spaces where you've gone in, could say you've transcended to via meditation, because when I hear you speaking, I've heard many people speak about the different dimensions, not just through meditation, but still, again, the term meditation could be seen as many different things. So, for example, a wonderful man, Todd Akemius, who's spoken with me, a friend of mine in the UK, he does astral projecting, and he does lucid dreaming, and he does a number of different techniques for many, many years, where, he goes to, he literally just constantly lays down. He's got a certain light that works with him, and other equipment. Now you could say he's a professional in his field. So, he's got ways of, and techniques of just, going out of that body and into another dimension. And that's something that he shares, teaches, and spreads his awareness around the world, and constantly saying to people, look, you're not just this, supposed solid human being, and that, you're a multidimensional being that can interact and go to multiple places.
Yes.
So one of the things he spoke about once was that, he can find himself sometimes going to a sort of same place or similar place. Is that something you found with your process, your meditation? So you talk of this, for example, healing space that you found yourself at, or any of the other dimensions that you found yourself going. Is it now something that you can sort of tune into, and you find yourself trying to go back there, or is it more very, very, spontaneous and unexpected?
Yeah, it's and by the way, Todd's fantastic, by the way, as you know. I tend not to go to the same places ever, actually. And what I've been able to do over a long period of time, Simon, is I've been able to map out actually a bit of the structure of our multiverse. And there are certain frequencies within this dimension. There's 12 frequencies within this dimension. And then above this dimension, there's 12 frequencies, 12 frequencies, and 12 frequencies. And then it's the end of the second. And then the same thing, 12, 12, and 12 in the third. And there's 12 full dimensions, 36 frequencies or subcomponents within each dimension, and 397 different total realities within the multiverse. So I've actually done a lot of research in this and explored my consciousness and taken notes with each different place that I've gone to. And there are certain realms outside of the first dimension. Everything is non-physical. There is no solidity whatsoever. Everything is in the wave form. And as you know, we exist in both the particle and the wave form, and simultaneously. And Todd is so right that we are so much larger and so much more than just the physical being. We are consciousness having an experience as a human being, but our consciousness is literally everywhere. And one of the things that I do, and I know other people do it as well, when you get more skilled at doing this, you can open up more than one reality at a time. So in other words, it's not just one screen will drop down. You can drop down a couple of different screens. And you can actually be experiencing different realities with our reality, Simon, as the backdrop. And when I first started doing that, one of the things I realized immediately is that literally I was everywhere. My consciousness is everywhere, but when you're in the body, you can only really experience fully one reality at a time. Think of a radio. There's hundreds of songs playing all at once. But if you have a radio, you can only listen to one at a time. And realities work the same way. We can only pick up essentially and experience one reality at a time through our brain, fully experience it. But we are everywhere all at once. And meditation, as you said before, whether it's all you're doing is changing the electromagnetic frequency of your brain, which resonates exactly with the Earth's electromagnetic frequency. And as soon as you change that, you can do it through meditation, rhythmic drumming, dancing. Todd might do it with lights. As soon as you change it, it's like turning the dial on the radio, and all of a sudden you can hear a different song. You can experience a different reality.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
No. Carry on. Use mid-flow. I just agree.
Yeah. So I've experienced hundreds of different realities, and what I do and what anyone can do is that anytime I go to these places, Simon, I simply state to myself, I retain all information and knowledge contained within this realm. And I can actually feel the crown chakra on the top of my head tingling like crazy, because you're in the download and you're taking it in, taking it in, and taking it in. And the 15 or 20 articles that I've written, and the one about the ego that you enjoyed, I really feel have to do with direct knowledge and information that I get from exploring these different realms, and exploring these different frequencies and dimensions. And when you start to do that and you come back down, you really start to realize about what's really controlling most people, and they don't realize it, is their ego. And the ego only exists in the physical realm, Simon. The ego is a direct result of the pressures, the programming of physical reality. It doesn't exist once you're outside of your body.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a lovely move. A lovely move into that, because as you were speaking, it's cool. I love it because, you know, like how I see it, just to throw this in there and for people viewing as well, it's just, I've always said since the last sort of several years of me going on this deeper inquiry into consciousness, into self, into who am I, into love, into truth, is that you start to dissect everything. You start to dissolve. Everything dissolves, you know, your whole identity dissolves, and you start, you know, you can't not look at the self without questioning what is the ego, because, you know, instantly this idea of I comes up, you know, the I, the identity. And you might come across a number of people. And I mean, I think probably one of the first that I come across from really exploring the ego was Eckhart Tolle. And a lot of people have, of course, now become familiar with him and so on. And then, you know, I started to find certain spiritual teachers, you know, again, a lot of them were given quite, like, you know, you got to sever the ego, you know, the ego's bad, and like you can't, you know, you sort of kill the ego, as it were. So there are many different theories about the ego, and this is why I think I also come across yours, because I was looking at, you know, Carl Jung's version of the ego and the different selves, and you know, just diving in to explore it a bit deeper for myself to see what different human beings have found. And sort of prior to that, I think what I come across myself is I started to sort of visualize and see that each, let's call it human being for now, but each human being for me became a multiple dimension just within you could say the physical realm. So like you right now for me are like a dimension. I'm speaking to you and you're transmitting and sharing information to me through the way that you have experienced and viewed reality. So it's like I dive in this moment into you as the dimension. So then when I look out there as just on the sort of planet Earth, on what we see in this so-called physical reality, it's just these like opportunities of like constant different dimensions that you can jump into through each individual. And I started to visualize it almost and like bubbles, you know, bubbles of reality that, you know, when you dive into another person's thoughts, feelings, theories, ideas and concepts, you know, you're opening up a whole spectrum of reality. And as you were speaking, what I was taking away is this, you know, the radio analogy is always a great one, because like you said, these waveforms and so on going on, and that, you know, depending on where you want to position yourself, you know, your psyche is locked into these different radio waves. So, you know, when I was a criminal and maybe a lot less aware than I am now, you know, I was in one reality. It was very dense and very small, and, you know, very sort of almost known and singular, but that was a world. You know, the world of crime is a dimension in this dimension. Mm-hmm. And as you were speaking then, I was going, wow, it's like, even as you was talking about the radio waves, is that each day we get an opportunity of what we're tuning into and where we want to put our focus. And you've chosen meditation as, I'm sure, just one of the things, and sharing and teaching, and, you know, and everybody's having these opportunities. Somebody might be like Todd and choose astral planing, or, lucid dreaming, or exploring dreams, or astrology, and all these different modalities that we're all exploring here. But it seems that we're missing how powerful and how magical we really are. And maybe this brings me full circle to what you said about this idea of the ego, and this idea of us being this fixed form, because a lot of people have said that this is the dream. You know, I love how Alan Watts describes reality, and he says, like, if you could dream up the most amazing dream of all dreams that you could ever dream, you wouldn't even be able to dream what you're experiencing right now. You know, it's like, it's just phenomenal. So I don't know, I just throw that in the pie for a minute and see what's coming up for you from that space.
Yes, all limitation is self-imposed. All limitation. And everything is choice. We chose to be here. We chose to have this experience. And we are multidimensional beings. And part of the raising of awareness, or the raising of perception, is the awakening, is what everyone is calling, which is what is really happening. And really what it is, it's that more of our awareness is coming online. And we are starting to realize, just like what you said, that we are not just this physical being. We're not just human. This is the tiniest part, really, of what we really are. And in fact, it's often called the Atma, A-T-M-A, or the higher self, or the Godhead, or the true energetic self. That is the much larger you. And that much larger you is almost like a mini-me of the Creator. And that much larger you spits out all its little souls at the exact same time, all the little projections. So one of those is RJ, and another one is another being at another time, and another being at another time. And it's all happening right now. And that's the part that I think most of us, when we start to explore this, Simon, is that our brain is designed to think in terms of linearity. 1, 2, 3, 4, things happen in sequence, and they don't. They don't. That's actually just how our brain processes this reality. And when you change the electromagnetic frequency of your brain and you turn the dial, you realize that you can experience anything. What you thought was the past, or a past life, you can experience right now. And if you can experience it right now, it's not in the past. Same thing with the future. What we thought was, or what we term a future life. If you can go to a future life, that means it must be happening right now. And that's, once we start to wrap our mind around this, that things don't happen in a linear fashion, we start to realize that our power and our divinity and our love is absolutely unlimited. And this is what I mean about all limitations are self-imposed. As we come online with more awareness of who and what we are, we realize that there is absolutely no limitation. And there are beings that can go anywhere within their consciousness, anytime and anywhere, at a moment's notice. And after you do this over and over, and you practice and you practice and you practice, you can do it. And I've taught people how to do it. Anyone can really do it. Some people might be better at it than others. That's fine. That's fine. But it's not like only Todd can do this, or only RJ can do this. Anyone can do it. And when you start to really understand who and what you are is nothing in terms of what you've been taught, what you've been conditioned to believe, and that gets into the ego and belief systems and a sense of limitation.
That's great. So let's dive in there now, because what was coming up for me is that this idea of, when we come out of this idea of linear time, the concepts of time, because time in itself is a constant limitation. Yeah, it's like, yeah, just the fact that, myself and everybody I meet, are constantly confined by this idea of time. And I'm always saying that this idea of time, it can't be real, because one, we don't really know time. We don't really know history time. None of the timings seem to really correlate and link in. We don't really know when, this idea of AD, before Christ, not Christ. We don't really know when this idea of this guy Christ was born. Then we come into like, astrology, and you start to look at all the different ways that, different civilizations have functioned at different times. And then sometimes a second can feel like a day, and a day can feel like a second. So when we really just feel into this idea of time, which is controlling us so much, light, dark, day and night, 24 hours, different civilizations have had different calendars. So at the moment, what seems to be happening, RJ, and I want us to definitely go into what's causing the limitation. I know you're pointing to this idea of the ego, but when you're talking about, okay, we're only limiting ourselves, we're multidimensional beings. So I also want us to dive into this concept of death, because I think that death is really beautiful for me, in terms of, because most of us are so limited, because we also focus on this idea of life and death, and this idea of a beginning and an end. Mm-hmm. And this for me is always something that I'm trying to just dissolve and allow it to dissolve. I can see how I'm still conditioned by it deeply, but I can see that when that dissolves, when I'm in meditation, or I'm just in silence, or I'm just in the present moment, allowing the present moment just to be, then I can feel that this idea of beginning and end dissolves, and this idea of time or age or getting somewhere dissolves. But also within that, there is this sort of clear, seemingly, I'm going to say seemingly, because I don't want to attach to like fixed knowing to, but there's this seemingly idea of the human body aging and getting old and dying out. So I think, if we dive into, again, now this idea of the ego and its causes of conditioned self. And I'd love us today as well, because this conversation is so rich for me. I'd love us to really maybe go into, and what you've uncovered of why that's even there, why we're having an awakening, in the sense of like, why this innate knowing of the vastness of who we are is being so, conditioned, suppressed, and dumbed down,
Yeah, there's a lot there, what you just said, Simon. So let's, and I love where your mind is going. Okay, let me just start with time a little bit. One thing that I've experienced when I've been able to elevate my consciousness to a very high frequency, vibrating faster, essentially. What I found is that there's so much more, and this is how I describe it. There's so many more nows per second in higher consciousness. And all the way down here, things feel very slow. Our brain, like I said before, functions in that it seems like everything is fluid. It's not at all. And I'm going to go back to a movie analogy. Movies in general are filmed 24 frames per second. In general, 24 frames per second. And when they're played back at a certain speed, as we're sitting in the theater, it looks very fluid. Just like our basic reality, me talking and moving, and you likewise, seems very fluid. It seems that way because that's how we're interpreting it. That's actually not what happens. The 24 frames per second, this reality actually literally has millions of nows or frames per second. Our brain just doesn't pick it up. It picks it up when you're actually in a heightened, altered state of consciousness. But within the body, it doesn't do that. So what does that mean? That's so wonderful that you've experienced that, Rj. What does that mean exactly? Well, it means that with each now that happens, right? Within each now, literally a parallel reality or a parallel world can be created based upon if there are choices that we have that we get to make. So let's say you're dating two girls, right, at the same time. and you love them both, and you don't have, hey, you never know. You love them both, and you don't know which one is really in your heart, right? Well, you're going to have that moment where you make a choice, right? And you go with Lisa. Well, what's going to happen is there's going to be a parallel reality that's going to be created in one of those nows that happen millions per second, where you chose Jane. And that actually continues, literally. But our brain cannot pick that up because if we're on to the next now. And when
well, yeah, so hold that. That's lovely. So hold that. So it's because it's like, you know, it's nice to just dive into that because, like you say, we throw a lot out there for the viewers watching. So yeah, so in that moment of making a decision, and in the millions of nows that are happening,
yes,
then because there was two, because that choice was still made, just saying, because that choice was still made, even though I might be living the now that went with Lisa or Jane or whatever, this other one still continues,
yes,
with Simon and Lisa as their conscious expression, that as another lifeline, a bit like that concept of the film was sliding doors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Simon, that's exactly it. I mean, it's obviously it's much more highly detailed, but that is exactly what happens. The whole point of being here is that we have free will, that we have choice, and it's our choice to even be here. And all these different choices that we make, part of being able to experience everything that we can possibly experience, which is the point of being here, the richness of the experience, is that parts of your energy continue down choices that it would appear that you didn't make. But when you're given a choice, all possibilities get explored. It's just that the mind can only fathom and experience one at a time. Just like the songs playing, hundreds of songs playing right now, can only hear one at a time. We can only experience, or Simon can only experience the choice that he made to go with Jane. But you had an opportunity to go with Lisa. And so that there is part of you and your energy in one of those nows that actually is going in that direction. And these are the parallel realities, the parallel worlds. This is a lot of where deja vu comes from. This is a lot of where people seem familiar, places seem familiar, stuff like that. There are parallel existences, millions of them, that are happening right now. And it only continues. So let's say Simon consciously chose Jane, but Lisa was a choice. And if we follow that choice energetically, we will follow that choice energetically as far as there is still room to experience, learn, and evolve. Once down a choice where there's nothing else to learn, experience, or evolve, it just dies out like a branch on a tree. And that energy of that parallel reality starts to return to Simon. So we look like, from the energetic, from a higher perspective, when we look down, or when I look down at Simon, from the energetic, you look like a tree, Simon, with all these different branches. And these different branches jutting out from the main tree are all the choices that you think you didn't choose. But there is a part of you that did choose, because the point of being here is to experience everything that you possibly can. And when you expire, and we'll get to death, there's no such thing as death. When you transition out of your body and you review your experience as Simon, you're going to review all the choices that you made and all the opportunities of choices that you didn't make. You actually get to see what would have happened if you carried on and down that route. And that's part of the entire life review. And that might be something that not a lot of people are talking about. And it could just be, if they just went to a certain state of heightened awareness, they would actually get to see this. You can actually see it play out. And you can also ask just to get the information. Like often, I'm not necessarily, I don't mean to get off subject. Often I'm not necessarily speaking to a being per se, but the energy and the information within this realm, I say I want to retain all information and knowledge from this realm. So I actually get the information. And after I'm done meditating, often I'll write an article. It's like, I didn't know any of this until I started meditating. But
hold that thought. It's beautiful. I just realized I've not plugged my battery in. Give me 1 second. It's saying no battery. But this is good for the viewers as well, because I'm just going to say this, is that when we're having these conversations and we're diving in, as I know some of you guys watching, you might be like, oh, yeah, I want to ask this, or what about this, or oh, ask this question. And so in these moments, whatever's coming through for myself and RJ is that, you know, it's also opening up an opportunity for you, the viewers, to just, you know, explore that. Because as I'm listening to RJ, I'm having an experience where my mind's like trying to function, trying to work it out, trying to logically, you know, put it into place, and, you know, the brain, and then the whys come up. Why, and how do I know that? How does RJ know that? And do I have to meditate for, you know, 20 years before I'm going to know that? Or where does it come from? Is it all just Chinese whisper of information? So I just want to throw that out there, why I get the charger for the computer, and just to let what we've shared at the moment, maybe just take some deep breaths, close your eyes if you're watching this conversation, and just take some deep breaths and let yourself sink into yourself. And then whatever RJ's sharing or I'm sharing today, you know, allow yourself to really tune in to what feels true for you. And like RJ said, is all of us are at different, you know, different moments, different nows of experience. So the key is to not come from that place of judgment, because in that place of judgment, what we can do is we can block the opportunity of the infinite possibility to come through, because we've already judged it. So we block it out of our consciousness. So I want to say that because I know that RJ is going to dive in also to what is suppressing us from being an open conduit for conscious awareness. So give me 1 second.
Sure.
And RJ, save it, because I want you to speak to that.
Sure.
Okay, lovely. Speak to any of that, RJ.
Sure. I think one of the hard lessons, Simon, that I had to learn was that I had to stop trying to figure everything out, and I had to get out of the realm of thought. It's a form of limitation, as odd as that sounds. Connecting with real knowingness and understanding lies beyond the realm of thought, and it even lies beyond the realm of feeling. And what meditation can do, or other forms, whether it's ayahuasca or whether it's DMT, rhythmic dancing, rhythmic drumming, anything that gets you out of your normal realm of thought and thought pattern will elevate your consciousness. And once your consciousness begins to be elevated, you'll actually realize that you're outside of the realm of thought. It's thought, and figuring out is a low frequency existence. And what I talk about, you can never take the greater reality and squeeze it into the smaller reality. There has to be a degree of enhanced awareness and perception and openness to be able to take this in and not judge it as it's coming in. Because I know in the very beginning, Simon, I think that really messed me up. I would get visuals, or I would get information, or I would get clear audio, which is literally like you're hearing a conversation. And as I'm getting it, I'm trying to figure it out. And you can't figure it out in the same way that physical reality works, because the greater reality works in a different way. And getting outside of thought is really, really key. You can't figure out the greater reality. You have to experience the greater reality. And it is our natural birthright, and it is who we are. But and this is going to take us into the ego, we're told all that's nonsense. We're told all that's crazy, right? And we're told all that matters is physical reality, and all that matters is your body, and all that matters is how much money you have and what you look like and who you know and blah, blah, blah. It's a system of limitation. And it's a system of limitation that we've accepted.
Right.
We've accepted because we have been masters of limitation for a very long time. And part of what is happening is we're starting to realize that it doesn't feel right. There are too many people realizing that there is so much more. They're experiencing it themselves, whether they meditate or it's just a feeling in their heart or something, and we're starting to break the bonds of the limitations that we accepted. And what ties us to the idea of limitations and physical reality, the ego, is what is used to tie us down. And it's karma is the tool that is used to hook the ego and keep it in low frequency existence and keep it repeating in low frequency existence. And when people start to raise their awareness, which is what this awakening that, that we talk about, 2012 was a demarcation of actually the awakening of greater sense of perception and awareness. It has nothing to do with the end of the world. It never had anything to do with the end of the world. But as we allow perception,
or just the end of the world as we have known it. That was, I think, if anything. But sorry to cut you short, Carrie.
By the way, Simon, that's exactly right. That's exactly what it was. It was an end of a way of being.
Right.
Now we are into a new way of being. And the more that we allow greater awareness to happen is actually what activates our DNA and actually how we physically change. It's always spiritual informs the physical. It's never the physical informs the spiritual. But let me go back to the ego. Yeah. And it's basically hooked, Simon, through materialism. There are other belief systems, but materialism is the main thrust. Society, money, status.
Exactly.
We are told that these are things that we need to achieve. And we're brainwashed into it, and we're conditioned into it, and we judge ourselves and we judge each other based upon some made-up system. Literally a made-up system. Yeah. And we're breaking free of it, but until you can see what your belief systems are,
right,
what people end up doing, they end up only seeing their belief systems, and they actually think that's reality.
Right. That's a great. Let's just keep on that for a moment, because that's a really, for people listening, for myself included, because this is a really key point what you talk about there, is we're so fixed on our beliefs, that we will literally, not that we are killing ourselves and others based on those beliefs, that we're upholding so much, even without the real deeper clarity that they are true. Yeah. And this is something that I'm writing about. I mean, you go back as Socrates and Plato and the cave of fear, and when we look at the ego, for me, it very much links into fear, and we're upholding our beliefs because without them, we're scared shitless, excuse my French, because I don't like to swear very often. However, it's really, I just want to hold us on that for a moment, and just, again, this idea that our belief, this is who we are. Because, as you're watching, you might go, well, Rj is saying, this is who we are. We're this grander, bigger version, higher intelligence, consciousness. And you could say that we're saying this is how we are. But what we're pointing to here, and as many other mystic philosophers and many other people do, is we're pointing to that space, as Rj was saying, beyond thought. And belief at the fundamental is thought, right, Rj?
Yeah. Completely. Someone asked me to finish this sentence the other day. I believe. And they said, Rj, finish that sentence. I said, I believe that beliefs are the ultimate form of limitation. And I don't think he was expecting that answer. But then we started talking about that. Beliefs really are a form of limitation. We need to experience things, not believe in things. That's what holds us back. And belief systems, whether they can take the form of a religion, they can take the form of materialism, they take many different forms, but really all they are is a limitation. And what happens is when someone meets someone or something or has an experience that doesn't fit within their belief system, what do? They reject it.
Right.
They simply reject it. And It's because it goes back to what I said. A lot of people only end up actually seeing their belief systems. They never see reality for what it really is.
Yeah.
And the ultimate form, or the most harmful, is materialism and religion, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think religion got hijacked a long time ago, in my opinion, and it's used more to segregate and it's used more to, you know, we're the saved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's the all is in the one, and the one is in the all. And anyone who says it's only these kind of people or this people or this people that are saved, or God's people or God's chosen people or whatever, it's impossible, because all comes from source,
right?
God, right? Creator. There's only one, and we are just divine manifestations of that, having this experience. But we've chosen to limit ourselves through belief systems, through materialism. We spend our whole life building our own personal empire, making money, right? And yet we all know that when we transition out of our body, we don't take any of it with us. I wonder why we spend our whole life just building it. If we even go earlier, when we're born, we're given a name. We're given a social security number. We're given a birth certificate. We're immediately thrust into the system, Simon.
Yeah.
Immediately. We are immediately indoctrinated into a system of materialism from day one. And
yeah, so hold that, RJ, just because I want to talk to that, because you mentioned earlier as well that we choose, right? There's this element of choice. Okay. So, you know, whether we as a soul, or we as a spirit, or we as a multidimensional being have chose to be in this form, in this, again, we're using the term physical form here as a human being. So I'd love us, you know, I know as you're moving on, I don't want to stop your flow, but I'd love you to just speak to a little bit about this idea of humans choosing this, because it seems like sometimes we talk about materialism, consumerism, and we can see when you step out and you open your awareness, you can see how really crazy it is. And, you know, there is just such an awareness of insanity. Like, is that really how we're functioning? Are we really wiping ourselves out like that? Are we really in so much conflict and telling people that that's their land and this is our land and that's our boundary and that's your border and we own this water and that's our resources and we own this part? You know, we're wiping out the lungs of the planet there. You know, are we? But then if all of us are having this experience and we're choosing it, then to some degree, everyone's choosing that, right?
Yes. And the point, yes, Simon, but the point of the awakening is to actually see our own awakening reflected back to us through the eyes of everyone else and what we experience. So we're all remembering. And the only way to have that happen is to have it happen down here in a physical body. So you can see everything reflected back to you. Just like you said, when you start to really look at things, you start to really see them for what they are. And so you're seeing your own awakening, Simon, reflected back to you through the actions and through the reality around you, which is why we're here. But let's go back to what you said, choice.
Please, yeah.
This is also sometimes a hard concept for us to realize, because there's so much suffering and there's so much injustice and lack of compassion that it boggles the mind that anyone would choose that.
Right.
Well, there's another way to look at that too, Simon. The way to look at it is that you can only know joy, you can only know happiness, and you can only know compassion by experiencing the opposite.
Right.
And that only exists in physical reality. When we're out of our body, pure thought we experience. It's immediate, right? Because there's nothing to hold. We're pure energy and we're everywhere all at once. But to go back to what I said, why would anyone choose suffering? Why would anyone choose to experience injustice? Well, one reason people choose that is so someone else doesn't have to experience it. That's one reason. If I am suffering, Simon, and there are people that witness my suffering, and they connect with that suffering, and they understand that suffering, not have the knowledge that I'm suffering, but understand it. Because understanding is knowledge plus sympathy and empathy. And when someone else can understand my suffering, they don't have to experience that exact same thing literally for themselves, because they are experiencing it with me. And there are so many brave souls that have decided to come here and have an experience where maybe what's first and foremost is suffering, is injustice, is a lack of compassion. And it's so we can learn and know that we don't want this anymore. We're not interested in this anymore. We're not interested in having this experience ever again. We're not interested in seeing this experience ever again. And the only way to know compassion and love is to experience a lack of love and a lack of compassion. And so these people that are suffering, Simon, they are the great teachers. They are the great teachers for all of us. If we just open our eyes and see, we don't ever have to have these type of experiences again. No one will ever reincarnate or experience and come down here to have an experience of suffering again. This is how we can get past it. And by having the understanding that people are suffering, having this understanding, we raise our own awareness. And as we raise our own awareness, those around us, their awareness raises, their frequency raises, our frequency raises, and we pull ourselves up and we pull ourselves out of all the modes that tie us into ego, all the modes that create the ego, all the modes that create limitation. But we have to have the non-love to know love. We have to have the non-compassion to know compassion in the physical realm. It's all on one string. Source is everything. It's both the profane and the profound. And when we can accept that and not judge everything, we will start to rise above all the forms of control, including materialism and the things that lock us into an ego-driven existence.
Hold that. Yeah. Okay. Wow. There's a lot there to look at. So something that comes up for me from having these conversations and on my own inquiry is this. Again, I use the word idea, but you know, when we say, if we say up there, as if like we've come down from somewhere, and sometimes I get a bit lost in that sense that we've come down. I've met people along the way that say that, you know, they've had an experience of being a soul that's come into the body. You know, there's been many people talked about having experiences where they've known that they've chosen their parents, or they've chosen to come in at a certain time, and so on. You know, you have lots of different humans expressing so many, again, you know, multi-millions of expressions of life and how they're here and so on. So one of the things that I always dance with is this idea, well, if beyond this form, as you said, you know, we're not in this physical form, and that there is no suffering, let's say, yeah? Are you okay in saying that?
Yes.
Then in that space, I've often come up with this sense that this sense of love has no opposite, yeah? Love has no opposite, yet we play in duality still, you know, and I know there's non-dualist and, you know, this idea of beyond duality. And I know even as I'm just trying to work it all out in our head, we get to that place where, you know, nothing can be worked out. Then we're in the nothingness, then we're in the isness, and then we just laugh, right? Right? Because even as I'm talking, I can see the mind just trying to just try and work this out, because it's hearing what you're saying, and in that it's hearing some words that totally resonate. You know, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying, and then sometimes I hear some words, and in me I hear, oh, you know, that's I'm not fully with that, or not fully resonating that, you know, like this idea that we come down. I love how you describe that there might be I've spoken to my brother and a few other people on this idea that there isn't actually really any suffering when you open up and look at it, because all is well in all of creation. There's this term, you know, that all is well in all of creation when you step into a higher level of awareness, and that everything is divinely playing out in the stage of evolution where we are. So it's just interesting to also then say that we've somehow chosen to come into this physical form, but we didn't necessarily have to choose. Or did we even have a choice? Like, I don't know, RJ, and I might be digressing here and getting a bit lost, but I don't know. I personally, as this being of Simon, do not know or recall that I chose to come here and have this experience. I mean, if you'd have spoken to me 10 years ago, I was just striving to be an actor, be famous, stuck in the materialism and the consumerism, wanted to be Johnny Depp and make a hell of a lot of money and, you know, be as recognized as possible. And then, you know, something come along and slapped me around the face a few times and plugged me into something completely different. And then I opened up to the whole of, like, you know, the planet consciousness. What the hell? Here I am on a planet revolving around space, and I'm interconnected to all. And you know, and my whole, you talk about shift in perception. I mean, I think I had like 60 volts of awakening pumped up my bum quickly, right? and had a bit of a peak experience, as Carl Jung would say, you know, which was an experience of love as well. I was at first falling in love with what seemed like I was falling in love with a woman, but you know, in fact, I fell in love with myself and the world simultaneously. And then now, you know, constantly just life's dissolving, and I'm having conversations and, you know, meeting people, and like you said, when I'm meeting them, I'm almost getting a download of information, and which is then dissolving what I thought I knew and opening me up to infinite possibilities, and the journey continues. So, you know, as I hear you saying, it's like, it does feel that when you step into this awareness, this awareness of love, that you are on a mission. It's like you haven't, I don't know if I've chosen it, but you are on this mission, and this mission is to spread more awareness and love and awakening, as it were, in order for others to realize that they are more than them suppressed conditioned selves. So it does feel like there's this sort of, I don't like the word war, but this sort of, can we even say battle, but like this sort of conflict of awakening and suppression, and there's something coming out. I don't know what's coming up for you. Just, you know, throw something in there, because I'm just dancing around.
Sure. Well, I would say that my experience is that we come here to experience, learn, and evolve. And we come here as divine expressions of Source. And the only way for Source, God, the only way for Source to fully understand itself is to be able to experience everything that it possibly can, even down to the minutia. And the only way to experience the minutia is to project little pieces of itself all the way down into something that we call physical reality. So we are simply here to experience, learn, and evolve. And the reason why we chose this, you, me, and everyone else, is because it's the fastest way towards spiritual evolution. And that's why we chose to have this experience. And just like we were talking about, outside of physical reality, suffering and pain, it doesn't exist. There's no body, so you can't suffer.
So hold that thought. Sorry, just to go. So if we're moving into spiritual evolution, let's say, yeah, what? Yes. But what is there already? There's already this idea of spiritual existence, right? People talk about, you know, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. Right. So are we saying that the spirit wanted to come down, it's already spirit, yeah, this idea of spirit, if we want to use that word, and it wanted to come down, have a physical experience to then spiritually evolve, but it was already spirit, no?
Yeah, we're always spirit.
So why do we have to have the human experience, or this so-called human experience? Or are we just, this is the thing that comes up for me a few times, RJ, I'm just going to throw it in there, is that, you know, when we talk about, you know, I heard Neil Donald Walsh and a number of people talk about, you know, God experiencing itself, you know, in many different forms to understand who it is, but then it already knows what it is if it doesn't need to try to understand what it is, right? Because it is just is. Yeah.
I would say to that, I understand why you're asking that. I would say, that it cannot know what it is in all forms unless it has a physical incarnation and experiences physical reality. So everything is spiritual evolution. Everything, every moment, every now is spiritual evolution in action, right? We are spirit, we are energy, and it's the projection of energy and sentience down into this frequency where a human body can actually form. And then we have this experience, because you can only have physical experience. And now I'm starting to think, when you say down here, up here, everything is everywhere all at once. So it's a big misnomer to talk about up here and down here.
Exactly.
Everything is everywhere all at once. But the real point, though, Simon, of having the human experience is to be able to experience things in a body as a human, in physical reality. And there is no pain and suffering outside of physical existence, outside of the first dimension. Because when everything is pure energy, your leg can't hurt, your arm can't hurt, you can't have a headache, you can't need surgery. It doesn't exist. You don't have a body. Only aches and pains and suffering happens down here. This is why it's the master class in spiritual evolution, because there are beings and higher frequencies that blow each other up with different items, and they just reassemble themselves right away. They just put their body right back together. There's nothing to lose. And when there's nothing to lose, or at least the thought that there's nothing to lose, there's almost nothing to gain. Now down here, we think death exists. We think loss exists. It's an illusion, much like physical reality. What you are, Simon, is forever and eternal and ever expanding. You just keep changing forms, as do I. The piece of your higher self that is right here in you right now is forever and eternal. What's surrounding it is just a suit. It's just like a diving bell that you would need to go down to the bottom of the ocean to experience the bottom of the ocean. We need a body to experience the heavier, denser frequencies. We actually need a body. So that's why we come down to experience that, and that's how we experience that. And by the way, this happens on the third dimension. We project down from the third dimension. There's 12 dimensions. That's where reincarnation actually takes place, from my experience, right? This is just my perception, right? And anything I share, all it is my perception. It's not
exactly, yeah.
Right.
But we always have to say that when we're dancing in the realms of explaining or trying to explain, because, you know, ultimately I always come back to this idea of mystery. And I notice sometimes this, for me, this is just my process of detaching from thought, which is that if I come back to the mystery and this sense that, hold on 1 minute, brother, Marky Mark. It's my wonderful friend who's lent me his house, just come home. So yeah, when we're in the mystery, when we're playing in the mystery, what always comes up for me, and, you know, as always for everybody watching as well, is that these conversations for me are like RJ said, with whether it be dance or whether it be, some people might take ayahuasca and so on, is that I find in the conversation you get the opportunity to also dissolve and move beyond thought, if you're willing to not attach too much of the needing to know. So what the mystery does for me is, it like, if I come back to, okay, well, yeah, if we get caught too much in this, like, this is fixed and I know, then it's like we cannot allow the flow of new information, if you want, or new insight to come to us. Does that make sense, RJ? Because when I come to that place of like not knowing and not needing to know, then I almost feel like a more peaceful transmitter or receiver.
Yes, that's exactly right. And you're right, Sam. Once you actually think that you know, that's when the world will kick you in the butt and let you know that what you thought you know was just a sliver, and there's so much more.
Right.
I think the most important thing, I know this is like where this is coming from, but I'm just gonna say, I think the most important thing is to realize that everything is choice. Every thought that we have, every experience that we have is a choice. And we can choose to be in joy. We can choose to experience happiness. We can choose to be compassionate. Right. And if we just do that, the world changes in the blink of an eye.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything is literally a choice. And it's our thoughts and feelings are the filter for our experiences. And we can have an experience and we can choose certain thoughts to associate or filter that experience, or we can have an experience and choose certain feelings to associate or filter that experience. But thoughts and feelings aren't within us. We reach out for thoughts and feelings, literally. And that's why everything is a choice. Everything is a choice.
Yeah, you're going, because that's beautiful, because that brings, because I was just going to say to you, what was coming through me from that last little dive that we had, I love it, I love these dives, is that how to bring that down for the individual. And I say bring it down, I just mean ground it, because, you know, at the moment we're floating around, which is beautiful. But how was to bring that down for the individual to realize that they're a grand creator of reality. And I think what you just did there was you did that because you're saying that, you know, let's talk about choice, because that brings the power back to the individual to realize that they have a choice and they don't have to choose X, Y, and Z, you know, the dysfunctional relationship or the you know, the numb, desensitized, consumeristic, materialistic, you know, world. They don't have to choose suppression or depression or so on. So you maybe talk a little bit about that. What's been your experience with that, with the people that have come to your meditation and so on? You know, it's like just to empower people with choice.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because most people are making their choices through their belief systems, and it's the reason why they continue to suffer, or they're looking or having expectations of a certain result, and they're not getting it because they're making their choices through a belief system. And it's when you let go of belief systems and you realize that nothing in and of itself has any meaning whatsoever. Existence itself is a blank slate, and we can populate it with whatever experiences we like, and we can populate it with whatever thoughts and whatever feelings we like, once we let go of belief systems and we simply just experience, and it's a blank slate. And we tend to label things, well, this was good, this was bad. There's no such thing as absolute good, absolute bad, absolute right, absolute wrong. There's only what works and what doesn't work in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
As an individual.
Everything else is relative, right? Everything else is relative. And if it's relative, there's a safe bet it has to do with some form of belief system. You go to one country and what's right and wrong there is different than this country, and so on. There's no absolute right or wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, it's changing constantly. Pull your camera down a bit. Your camera's changed. What are you? Is that your woof woof?
That's one of my dogs. Yeah, he loves to jump up on my lap.
What is it? He? Yeah, what's his name?
His name is Marlon. No, it's a good boy, and he's named. You'll get a kick out of this, Simon. He's named Marlon after Marlon Brando. Marlon
Brando, awesome. I can see one in the background as well. You got two dogs.
Yes. Yeah, that's Sophia. They're brother and sister. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I love.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I love how we, you know, one of the things that continually comes up, and it's hard to grasp. I think I want to just talk a little bit about this idea of choice, because, you know, I know in my own experience is, you know, I get frustrated sometimes. Make a choice, and the choice is, you know, go one way, and I think sometimes, wow, you know, I would choose this, and this, and often I notice my own limitation in my choices. Yeah, I noticed that, you know, my own, almost, I call it lack mentality that I've noticed over the years. You know, as I said, a lot of people that watch Simon on the Sofa know that, you know, I grew up in a council estate and I was a criminal, and I got myself into drugs and crime, materialism, and all, you know, and all this, and like you said earlier, we're born into this deep conditioning, and then, you know, when you realize it. So I realized it at 30 years old. You know, it's still 7 years and it's still going on, where I'm like noticing the subtleties of the deep-rooted unworthiness bug, you know, or the deep-rooted lack and suppression that subtly tries to grip it in, which then triggers the self-saboteur, or I call it the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle does, which is another aspect of what you're calling the ego, right? The unhealthy ego, which just wants conflict, suffering, anxiety, stress, depression, you know, judgment, blame, assumption. Yeah, it just thrives in that place, doesn't it? And I feel that, as you know, meditation as one tool, and dance, as you mentioned, and drum circles, and these other tools, it keeps coming up for me at the moment, RJ, is that just sharing with people the many different tools that can just, you know, pull us out, or at least give us a glimpse out of that deep-rooted conditioned state.
Yes. Yes. The first thing I want to say, Simon, is that I'm humbled to have this conversation with you, because you're so honest, and you've woken up and you're waking up and you're sharing that. And I just want to tell you, there's nothing more beautiful than that. Nothing. And I want to go back to something that you said.
Please.
The self-sabotage and the beating the self up. Okay, Marlon. Marlon, what's going on?
Marlon remembers that.
Yeah, let me grab one more time, please.
Yeah, let him on. It's all good. It could be Marlon on the sofa. I'm going to change the name of the talk.
So I want to point out, because all of us beat ourselves up. It's just to what degree people do it, right?
Right.
Beating ourselves up, for whom and for what?
Exactly.
Beating ourselves up for whom and for what? And I guarantee the answer to that question 100% of the time will have to do with the ego. And the ego, and let's look at the ego a little bit more, Simon. Sometimes we think of the ego as the person really full of themselves, trying to. Well, it works the opposite way. The other end of that spectrum, where unworthy, right? Not good enough. Both ends of the spectrums are products of the ego. Both. And when we take a step back and ask ourselves this question, good enough for who and for what?
Right.
And when we start to examine that, that's the first step. And anyone who's listening or anyone who's going to play this, please, if you don't feel good about yourself or you don't feel good about someone else, ask yourself that question. For whom and for what? And I guarantee you'll go to your ego. And when you realize it's your ego will be a product of some belief system, something that's been inundated or forced upon you or told to you that you must adhere to and practice. And it's all nonsense. It's a form of limitation. It's an absolute form of limitation. And any form of limitation works against the natural flow of the universe, which is ever expansion, creativity, that is all inclusive. Right. That's the natural flow of the universe, to keep doing that. And anything that doesn't do that will be suffering. Anything that doesn't is suffering.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm glad that came through, because in that state of suffering, what are we always doing? We're blocking our creative self, right? So how many times, whether it be the artist way or whoever you talk to, it's like constantly this natural state of the creative self wants to express itself, and the ego is constantly trying to suppress that. And I often describe it as well, that it's fearing its own death. When I talk about the pain body, the crazy thing about the ego is that it's fearing its own death. It's craving love, it's craving recognition, it's craving to somehow do what it wants to do. And in that, because of its deep-rooted fear and of death, which, like you said earlier, there isn't no death, but the ego senses that it's going to die. And then it tries to hold on at all costs. It will call you stupid. It will say you're an idiot. It will say you can't do it. It will say, who are you to think you can, experience higher states of consciousness or whatever, it will just constantly come in. It'll say, you did this when you were younger, you went out and you said this, you were so silly, you embarrassed yourself, it will just come with all these stupid little, like you said, limiting beliefs, again, back to beliefs that are not real, can't be real, they can't be real. And it blocks us from tapping into, I love how you described it, tapping into the natural flow and vastness of the universe and nature. I mean, look at nature and the universe and the sun and all of us, and we are that. It's like we are not separate from that. And I think that's where we step in and dive into the miraculous nature of who we are, and they see ourselves as miracles. And then I often say to people, RJ, how can you not love yourself? You're a unique miracle expression of life. And if you can just tap into that for a moment, you can ask yourself, which is, you said it slightly differently, but what have you done that's so bad that you have to continually harm yourself in order to somehow fix it?
Yeah, absolutely, Simon. And the ego will do anything to perpetuate itself. That's its sole function, is to perpetuate itself. And we buy into it through the belief systems. I don't look good enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right job. I don't have the right girlfriend. I don't have the right dog. My apartment isn't nice enough, and on and on and on and on. And none of it matters unless you choose to believe that it matters, because it doesn't. We are manifestations of creation. We are creation itself, literally, and we are limitless. All limitation is self-imposed. And when we drop the belief systems that limit us, that you have to go and do this, you have to have a job, and you have to make X amount, and you have to get married, and you have to have kids, and you have to look a certain way, and you have to, says who, for whom, and for what? For a system built to limit you.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. And I love how we went full circle to how we began. I always love it when that happens.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
We can choose, Simon, we can choose to have any experience that we want. We can choose to have any thought, any feeling. We can choose to have any of this. Oh, and I just want to go back to this because we talked about, you know, how can we really understand what compassion is or what love is in the physical world unless we experience the opposite? Because duality, you cannot escape duality in the physical world. There's no black without white. There's no right without wrong, right? Nothing could just be hot because there has to be cold for us to know what hot is, right? Yeah. So duality is inherent in physical existence, but it's when we can transcend physical existence, Simon, when we can transcend that and understand the greater reality exists, it gives us a much richer experience in terms of understanding what this really is. We're just here to experience this, literally. We should stop taking ourselves so seriously. We should stop taking each other so seriously. It's all an act of creation. It's all an act of play, and it's play, and it's all made of love. Yeah, playful love. That's what it is, and that's what I put when you had mentioned. I like when you said I like Jeff in your bio, RJ. That's the most important thing to convey to anybody. That everything is choice, and you're here because you choose to, because you want to play, because you want to experience. Right. Choose to play. Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love that. Choose to play, you know. It's and it's funny, I just want to say to people watching is that, you know, you go for a process of seriousness on this path. Trust me, the more you open to to your awareness, the awakening process, even meditation, and again, you know, RJ's been meditating way longer than me, but, you know, at some points in the meditation, you know, you get really hardcore serious, you know, I did anyway, you know, it's like, I gotta sit longer, gotta do more, you know, it's like, you know, needed to lighten up on my sort of masculine discipline nature of what meditation was doing. And I loved it. I loved it when what opened for me is that everything can become a meditation. You use that practice of sitting down, breathing and so on, but everything can become a meditation. And I love how we've come and we brought it back to playfulness and joyfulness and dancing in the creative selves that we are, you know, creation expressing itself. I mean, that for me buzzes me up. That makes me feel alive. It's like, wow, you know. And one thing I want to say to what you just shared is that when we realize that we have choice, like you said, and that we're choosing it, what often happens, and this happened for me, and it's why I want to share it for others, is in that moment you start to, I think RJ said on this earlier, you start to beat yourself up. You're like, why would I choose this? Like if I can choose reality, if I'm morphing reality with every thought, action and word that I have, if that's really true, which I believe it to be, but don't believe my belief because belief isn't anything, right? But in my experience, as I've stepped into that, that has opened up such a opportunity and possibility, even if just being open in the imagination to the opportunity and possibilities. Some days I'm still feeling suppressed. Some days I'm still feeling limited. However, if we don't beat ourselves up for what's been before, then we can also open up much more, or cleanly maybe is the word, or more acceptingly. I don't know what's coming up for you from that, RJ, but do you see what I'm pointing to here? It's like, because what often happens, we go, well, why would I choose this? You know,
And then people go, well, I can't change my life. I've got debt. I need to pay the debt. I'm told I've got to pay that £10,000 off, and I'm working in this crap job, and I'm not choosing this, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes it gets a little sticky when people are saying, I don't have a choice. I have debt. I have this, I have that. It doesn't erase choice. It just erases that certain choices might yield certain outcomes. But you still always have a choice. There's never a moment where you don't have a choice. And there's never anything that you can experience that you are not directly and literally a part of. Everything is connected. Everything. All joy and happiness and what we view as success. Everything is connected. And all you have to do is allow yourself to connect with what it is that you want to connect with. You can't have an experience outside of yourself. In other words, like, you can't think of something or you can't have an experience where you're not intrinsically involved in it. Everything is connected. You know what a hologram is, right? And how a hologram works, right? The all is in the one and the one is in the all. And all possibilities are always a part of us. Always, forever. It cannot be any other way. So the idea of limitation is that we are buying into a belief.
Yeah, that we're limited.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you know what doubt, you know what real doubt is? Doubt is the 100% certainty in an outcome that we don't want.
Yeah, say that again. Doubt is 100% certainty in an outcome that we don't want.
Right. And that's what doubt is. It doesn't actually exist. It's a belief.
Right.
And once we let go of beliefs, anything is possible. Anything is possible. And if people want to change their life, do a mantra. I can't recommend those enough. Prior to meditating or prior to doing yoga or prior to going for a jog or, whatever it is that people do, right? It doesn't matter. Do a mantra. Say something to yourself 15 times, but you got to really mean it. And that's the whole key. You have to really mean it. And you can say, I need to have $2,000 a month to get out of my debt. I need to have $2,000 a month to get out of my debt. The universe will respond if you mean it. Everything is connected. So if you mean it, it will happen, literally. And I have students and people that I teach that will tell you that sometimes within 30 days, sometimes within 60 days, they got the job that they needed that pays the right amount, or they were able to, some debt got charged off out of the blue, and it seems like
the unexpected synchronicities start to unfold. But it's not to get caught up on the secret. I want to say this to people watching as well, as always, you beautiful viewers that come to listen to these conversations, is that when you make it these mantras, as RJ is saying, you do your meditations, or you sit in silence, or you breathe deeply, or you find your yoga, or find whatever it is that connects you to that deeper truth within you, is that you then, when you say a mantra and you keep saying it and believing it, you also embrace and embody the actions that must come, because often people think that they're not going to do any actions, like I really want the £2,000 or whatever it is more. I really want the different relationship. And, they keep going around the same thing, hanging out with the same people, never changing their patterns, and then just thinking then that whatever, the world doesn't function for them and that they must be bad and so on. So it's a dance with the with again how much you really, I suppose the word would be how pure your intention is, maybe how clean your intention is.
Yes, that's a wonderful point. And we can even tie that into meditation. What someone's intent is. If they want to go to a different realm, or they want to go to a different reality, a different frequency, or they want to interact with a different being or so on, your intent, if you really mean it, will take you to wherever it is that you want to go. If you really mean it. What you put out, you literally get back. It's immediate because everything is connected. And I think that's an important point to make. And like you said, just because someone does a mantra, but when that mantra really becomes part of you because you really mean it, you're absolutely right. You start to think, feel, and act in a different way, in a way that's in accordance with the mantra. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, because we have changed inside here, our reality starts to change because the change now is manifesting. So we can actually see the change. But all change actually happens internally. We just then actually have it, see it play out in what we call physical reality.
Amazing. Genius. I'm absorbing that. It's so amazing. Oh man, life is just of a whole nother level.
It really can be an endless exploration of fun and play. Yes. It's just a matter of how you are perceiving your reality. If you're constantly judging yourself and constantly judging others, then you're going to be miserable.
Judgment. The minute you judge another, you can't love them as well, right?
That's right. And if you and by the way, everyone is just another aspect of yourself. And that's a whole. That's a great for another talk. Yeah, actually, That's exact, Simon. We could have a whole talk on that everything is a representation of the self and how that actually works and so on. But just have more fun, have more play, let go of the beliefs, let go of the judgment, and all of a sudden you'll feel lighter, you'll feel better. And if you feel better, the people around you will start to feel better. If the people around you starts to feel better, your environment is better, and that spreads. It's like a triangle, like a triangulation effect. And that's what it's all about. Everything changes, Simon, by the way. All this changes as more awareness comes online. Meaning the only way to get out of all this is not through, well, if we just had a different president or we just had a different government or no. The only way all this changes is by the raising of our frequency, the raising of our awareness. And we realize that all is one, and the only thing that matters is the impact that you have on others and the manner in which you do it.
Beautiful.
Right?
It's a beautiful. And, so much in this conversation. I mean, we just rolled. I don't even know. We've been going for nearly 2 hours. I don't know. And just like, forget there's no time anyway, right? It just doesn't even matter. But I just want to say that as you were talking about pure joy, and I have to share this because I'm a transparent man, but I'm staying at my friend's house. And just as you were saying about being, the reality is what you choose it, and the joy and the happiness. He come out of the bathroom and jumped in the toilet naked and was dancing on the table. So it was like almost your words said that, because I've got you on speaker, and then he's just stood there dancing on the table like this.
That is perfect. Absolutely
completely heightened that experience of those words instantaneously.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite amusing. And and I want to say that, like I said, this is a total, we didn't know each other from tonight, and it's just thank you for coming here, sharing your story. And I know we could talk and dissect and take these little areas out, but also I never feel that anything more or less needs to be shared other than what came through in this moment, and what may continue to come through us as we embark on this journey. But I love the reflection that you've given me, and I also love I just love the way that we've danced tonight with that and explored together and allowed whatever's come through for ourselves and the viewers. So I just want to say thank you for your time today. Where are you? Because it's afternoon for you anyway, aren't you? Where are you? You're in New York, right?
I'm in big bad New York City, but not much longer. As I said to you in an email, I'm moving to a remote, beautiful island in just a few months. Can't wait.
Beautiful. Well, listen, I'd love us to, let's stay in touch, and if we feel that there's something that we want to, dive into, because, meditation for me is a really huge topic, and I feel a lot of people are always seeking more about meditation. So, we can always come back sometime and maybe do a little shorter piece just on meditation, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, there are 2 different techniques that I teach students, and both are very effective. As I had mentioned, Zazen is very effective, but there's a whole nother one where I'm able to jump off and teach people to jump off and just explore their consciousness immediately. And we could absolutely have a talk about that. That'd be fantastic. And I just want to add, Simon, like I said, I can't tell you how humbled I am to have this experience. You have woken up and you're sharing that with everybody, and you're completely honest about everything, and it's a real light. And sometimes it feels like we're bathed in darkness, and the more light that we can radiate within ourselves and share with each other, the better. And so I'm thankful and humbled that we actually had this conversation.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I get them. Yeah, I say this all the time, RJ, to people, is have the, share these conversations wherever you are in the world, find your friends, your family, and just, show up and just create a space so that you can actually just be together and explore. That's what we've done tonight, just feel that there was a very safe, in terms of even the short communications that we had on email, just we created a very safe and sacred space for conscious evolution, right?
Yeah. And I have a feeling we'll end up doing this one more time, or maybe one or two more times. I think there's a little bit more that we can explore. This was perfect for exactly what it was. There might be one or two other conversations we can have and share with other people too.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure too. I can feel that too. And I'm going to look forward to listening to this one back. So thank you again, Rj. Have an amazing afternoon. And as everybody knows watching, underneath the videos, there's a link to RJ's website and the article actually that I loved, which is about the ego, and it was called, I tell you now because I had it here, The Seduction and Destruction of the Ego. It's a wonderful article, and I found it on zengardener.com, but you can also go over to RJ's website, which is ascendthefrequencies.com, and you can read some of his articles there if you've enjoyed this wonderful conversation. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I really, really honor your commitment to tune into Simon on the Sofa. I've been doing these conversations for 4, 5, 6 years. I don't even know. There's 100 or more conversations there for people to, you can see my own personal transformation and evolution through the conversations, from the first ones where I was apprehensive and very vulnerable, and I'm still vulnerable but in a different way, and you can see how I've changed and evolved through the people I've met. And that's just out there for you guys just to explore and see that if you're even thinking of doing this, just get out there, do it, express yourself, let your creativity flow. I'm just doing that in my own vulnerable way, and so I thank you all for being here and look forward to bringing you more beautiful conversations. So take care wherever you are. Wow, I don't want to leave at these conversations. I'm like, you're a miracle, you're magic, you're higher intelligence. Just love yourself, you're worth it. And let's rock this planet and let's spread love and joy and cultivate, as RJ himself said, cultivate joy and love and awareness. Take care, RJ. Speak to you soon.
You too. Take care.
You can stay there, RJ. I'm gonna close the call and I'll say goodbye to you. Okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.